here a lot earlier in the morning, and I had travel difficulties. In fact, I'm literally coming straight from the airport to here. Apologies, I would have loved to interact with you to listen more of what was spoken earlier, but I hope in the limited time that we have between now and the end of the day, I can interact with as many of you as possible. So I'm going to keep it very short. I have about 4 or 5 slides. I'm going to talk about the importance of standards and certifications. Just wanted to start out with a little bit about myself. I currently run a company called BQ Global Solutions that offers supply chain advisory and services. It's based in Chennai. In addition, I'm also the director at the Institute of Supply Management, ISM India. I did an MBA in the US, and I was living the American dream for a little bit, but I found out that the great Indian dream was a better one to live in. So I returned to India, set up BQ, and it's been a good journey so far. In the past, mostly my experience in supply chain has been upstream in procurement and supply management, but I have experience deploying a global 3PL network for one of the companies in the US. I have also experience in lean manufacturing, ERP implementation. Due to my role with ISM, I also do a lot of training and certifications as well. So, when we come to risk management, I think in order to understand what roles certifying bodies and standard setting organizations can do, it is important that we understand what is risk, because with the way the global economy and the way companies are run now, increasingly what is risk is something that is constantly changing. So all of this is already something that you may already know, but this is I'm just going to rush through this because this will set the stage for what I'm going to be talking about. So risk can take multiple forms, but if you were to categorize risk overall, it would largely sit under 4 buckets. It would be cultural, operational, economic, or infrastructure related. So when we say cultural risk, we have with the globe having no barriers, we're interacting with many people, we're doing business with people across the globe. So there is a certain element of culture that we need to understand, and that poses a risk to a supply chain sometimes. And not just beyond boundaries, even ourselves. So as new generations enter the workforce, they seem to be operating in a completely different mentality or a mindset. So there is a certain cultural risk that we need to do to, for example, if there is a youngster that is entering the workforce, organizations need to be culturally able to adapt, or not just adapt, but involve them through the process as well, because the youngsters of today seem to operate very differently. I consider myself a youngster too, operational risk. When you go to operational risk, it's either external or internal. Certain times you're in control, you're in greater control of the risk, but more often than not, it's external to you, and you're forced to adapt, change your strategy to the risk that is imposed upon you. When it comes to economic risk, this is purely financial. It can be financial, it can be micro and macroeconomic factors over which you don't have control. Infrastructure related is mostly when you get to ports, the capacity of the ports, the roadways, and whatnot. But as we understand this risk that can take this many forms, we should also, when we are as an organization trying to evaluate risk that is to us, it is imperative that we view it across the value chain, not just limited to ourselves, but include all the players that add value to the supply chain at each level, and you view risk as a whole. And when it comes to evaluating or understanding risk, the size and maturity of an organization and the industry and the geography in which it operates will drive what type of risk they're exposed to. Largely it will be these four, but it can be in multiple varying percentages. And it is important as an entity that is part of a value chain or a supply chain that you view risk as being shared by all the entities and not just one alone. So given that we have a certain idea of what risk is to organizations across the world, what do standard setting organizations and certifying organizations do? Especially with the view on supply chain. Supply chain, I think, is evolved into one of the key differentiators as companies seek to deliver shareholder value. Interestingly, if you look at companies like Amazon, look at Zara, the clothing retailer, these are companies that are able to differentiate, that offer value to their shareholders purely as a result of their supply chain efficiency. And these are the companies that are pushing the boundaries in terms of what can be done and what cannot be done. For example, Amazon is just promising, recently they rolled out a 3-hour delivery. So from the time you click purchase on their website, the product that you request can be in your homes in 3 hours. So they're using something called drone deliveries. So they tried that in New York, but they're still viewing the results and recalibrating the efforts. But Amazon is a company that is constantly trying to reinvent or pushing the boundaries on what can be done. So these are the companies that are using supply chain as a critical differentiator and setting themselves apart. So, as this was a debate that I was having with a friend of mine recently, as I tried to think of what is the importance of standard setting, or what is the importance of organizations that certify. Now, when we were all, I guess, always when certain things are imposed upon us, we always resist towards certain things. Even when I was a young kid, my mom used to say, you have to prepare for your exams. My first reaction would be to not study, right? And that is very human. And that is the same way most organizations would also tend to feel. But if for example, if for an economy to grow, a completely deregulated environment with minimal interference from external bodies, with minimal rules, is what is going to drive growth. However, it can also lead to a lot of other things like corruption, monopolies. There are certain powerful entities that can take the system, play the system, and as a result, it would lead to lopsided growth and distribution of resources. So while deregulation has its certain benefits, there is a need for rules and regulations, and that's where I think standard setting organizations come in. However, bear in mind that when you aspire towards a particular standard, that shouldn't be the end goal in itself. Attitude is very important in that companies should always try to be the best they can be. For example, in a manufacturing setting, if an external standard says, hey, you have to get 90% deliveries, right? I'm just throwing out a number. It is imperative that the organization attitudinally says, why should I stop with 90%? Why not aspire for 95%? Right? So that is, while standards can play a role, organizations also have a role to play in terms of being the best they can be. And last point being, in a highly populated, often disorganized marketplace, standards help us in identifying which organizations or which companies are doing better than the rest. And so the 2 points on the left are more for TAPA. I don't know if there are, it is quite the way it is, but the ones on the right are more on ISM, which I'm heavily involved with. I can talk a lot more about that. So When it comes to setting up standards, it is independent and responsible bodies that get together that ensure that the system is the same for all types of entities, large or small. And by nature, most of these standard setting organizations are heterogeneous in the sense that they have stakeholders that are from multiple industries, backgrounds. They involve academia, the public sector, and the private sector. And as a result, it ensures that a whole variety of views and perspectives are captured. More often than not, one of the better aspect of organizations such as TAPA and ISM is that they enable forums that ensure a lot of best practices sharing, which means that non-competing organizations can learn from each other in terms of the problems they're facing, the various ways in which they were able to solve those problems, and as a result, the entire economy becomes more efficient. In a little way, but still it makes a difference. The last point is more along the lines of certifications. More often than not, when we enter the workforce, I wouldn't say our learning stagnates, but it narrows down to a particular sector, a particular role that we do on a day-to-day basis. So while we're learning every day, the scope of it narrows down. So as a result, it is important that we take a step back every once in a while, try to look out for some certifications and read more, try to become a more rounded professional. So with that, I think I have just one slide to talk about what ISM is and what we do. So ISM is the Institute of Supply Management. It is the first and the largest supply management organization association in the world. It started out in the US, and ISM India, which is where I'm a director, is one of the subsidiaries of ISM USA. We have approximately 50,000 members in over 140 countries, and the type of activities that we do predominantly are certification and training, and most of our training is focused on upstream. We have a lot of logistics and warehousing as well as part of our training and certification, but a lot of it is focused on supply management and procurement.